The path to paradise begins in hell. Welcome to the Grind Over Chatter podcast with Acie. This podcast is for everyone out there who's on the grind for a better life. Greatness ain't about what you've done or achieved, it's about how you got there and how you stay on top. You're about to hear real stories from real hustlers who are putting in that work to crush it in their industries today. Together, we'll learn about the qualities and habits that it takes to achieve success at the highest level. Whether you're looking for a new hustle or a side hustle, we hope to inspire and provide you with the tools to take your grind to the next level. Y'all ready? Let's get this money. Hey, what's up, y'all? Coach Acie here with the second installment of Acie Talks in the Grind Over Chatter podcast series. In this episode, I catch up with an old friend by the name of Adham Rabah. Now, Adham's a young dude who grew up in London, Ontario, but is now living in downtown Toronto. And the reason I chose to showcase Adham today on the show is his hustler spirit and mentality. As you'll see, he's a very intelligent dude, but the way he puts things into action is truly something special. Effortlessly, he goes from hustle to hustle, becomes an expert in the subject, and then moves on to the next challenge. In basketball, there's a term for guys like that, and it's guys who can create their own shot. We'll be talking about a bunch of these different hustles where he'll talk about his approach and secrets on learning and working for yourself. Truly an inspiring story if you're a DIYer or an entrepreneur. Enjoy the episode. My guest is my good friend Adham Rabah, recording live from Toronto. Now, ever since I met Adham, I knew he was a bona fide hustler. He was always involved in so many exciting different hustles, and the most amazing thing about him was that all these things were self-taught. He's a modern-day Renaissance man, and if there's something I want to learn about anything, chances are he's the first person I'm hitting up. So I wanted to bring him on today to talk about, self-sufficiency, constant learning, and of course, how to turn all this into cash. So without further ado, Adham, my man, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the intro. It's very humble.
Anytime, bro. So I met you several years back. I bought a MacBook from you. I actually still use that MacBook to this day for my DJing. It's been super reliable, and you've already fixed it for me a couple of times too, so I appreciate that. I've seen you dabble your hands in so many different hustles since I met you, because I see all your posts on Facebook, and we keep in touch every now and then. So I'm really happy to bring you on here today to kick it with me for a little bit. So on a personal level, why don't you start by telling us a few things about yourself, like where you grew up, what kind of kid were you, what kind of student were you?
So growing up, I think I had honestly like a pretty typical childhood. I grew up in London, Ontario, in like a medium upper class area, I guess. I was kind of always, I think of myself as kind of like the nerdy kid ever kind of thing. I still remember like probably one of my first accolades would have been in grade 3. I used to love playing with Lego and Connects and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I guess my grade 3 teacher recognized that at the time and ended up giving me a science reward for whatever that, whatever merit that has in grade 3. But it was like the first step of like, oh, this kid's a nerd. It was like the first seal of approval for me, because I mean, even then you knew like, maths and sciences, like most kids don't like those. And I always found it absolutely intriguing, whether it was space or literally just angles and stuff like that. And most importantly, engineering. So as a kid, I was just kind of like I would get presents all the time, and the first thing I would always do is take it apart. So nice. My parents would tell like all their friends, all my friends type thing, hey, if it's something that can be taken apart, if it has a motor in it, like if it's a remote control car, for example, don't buy it for my son, because he's just gonna rip it apart and turn it into something stupid.
Oh, really? Do you put them back together too after you rip them apart?
It started off just like, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, like, the kind of kid to take apart the remote controller just to put it back together.
Yeah.
So it started off literally with a remote controller. Actually, I'm pretty sure it was a remote controller where I first took it apart, kind of was literally just interested in what's inside of it, put it back together. And then I think it was a remote control car was like the first big project for me. Is like I got one for my birthday and I tore it apart within days and had stripped the motors from it, stripped the motherboard from it. And I mean, I turned this like $200 remote control nice car into just a dinky little hand fan that just plugged in with a 9-volt battery. And I guess that was the start of something, because instead of being a $200 car that I could have fun with, this was my 40 cent fan that I made. So it's it's a weird feeling being able to make stuff. And I guess I just always loved that as a child, just being able to play with my hands and then have an end product that I use, or I don't usually make things without purpose. So kind of started off there as a child, like I said, just kind of a tinker my whole life.
So I guess that's where your love of creation came from then, from Lego and
Yeah,
Connect.
it really did start young with Connect and Lego, and then I still remember maybe around 5 or 6 is maybe when I took apart my first computer, just for the sake of taking apart a computer and seeing what was on the inside. And I still remember having my computer. I was lucky enough to have a computer in my room as a child, but I remember taking it apart and covering it with a blanket because I knew I had to go to school, and if my mom would have seen my computer opened in my room, that would have been the end of me. So I still remember that. I did end up killing that computer, and then my dad actually has like his own little company, so he had a bunch of like dead computers kind of thing in the basement from like older computers and stuff like that. And I mean, kind of what I do now, I just kind of just took all of them apart. At the time I would have had no idea what any part was.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of grabbing stuff out of a computer, plopping it into the next one, and sure enough, I got one of them to boot up. And I think that's where actually I got the computer that was in my room, is by Frankensteining my dad's broken ones together.
Wow.
So yeah.
So how did eventually you learned what the parts did and stuff like that when you learned that?
I mean, honestly, I wish I could tell you. I think it was just strictly out of just interest. Like, one thing leads to another, one Google search leads to another. Like something in an article will reference, let's say, a CPU, like you have to do this to the CPU, and if you don't know what a CPU is, my natural instinct isn't to just leave it alone and just be like, oh, I don't know what that is, I'm not going to screw with it. I'm going to Google what the CPU is. I'm going to take a physical, like, I'm going to look at it and see what it is.
Yeah.
And then I'll know next time, oh, this is the CPU, or like, this is the RAM, this is the hard drive. So if I had to guess, I'm assuming it was something kind of just like order of operations kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where someone references, it's kind of like when someone uses a new word you don't know, you go Google it.
Well, not everyone does, right? Some people just they just rolls past their head. And
I like to think people do, just because I think it's better.
Yeah, well, for sure. Maybe you got a little bit too much faith in humanity there, but did you like, how old are you right now?
I'm 25. I just turned 25 in January, so I'm still young.
Oh, dope. And did you ever end up going to university or college?
No, actually, I was a really bad, like, kind of tie in with the childhood. Like, I was always a really bad student. Like, I barely passed any grades in public school. Like, actually, one of the biggest things actually was a staple in I guess you want to call my career, is my grade 8 science fair teacher. I made a paintball gun for my grade 8 science teacher. So I made a paintball gun for a science fair, and like I don't even know what age, 14, 15 at the time. And my teacher was absolutely floored, because it was a pneumatic rifle, essentially what it was. It used a bike pump that was attached to the thing. You'd pump it up with a bike pump, and you could shoot anything you want out of it. And I had made this out of PVC piping and stuff like that.
Crazy.
And he was absolutely stunned, but he said one thing to me that kind of, like, even to this day doesn't haunt me. It kind of was more of a kick in the ass to get me going. And he told me that, like, he held the gun in his hand. He's like, Adam, like, this is an absolute marvel of engineering. You're 14 or 15 or whatever the hell he said. He's like, you're 14 or 15. Like, you clearly have, like, engineering skills, but with your marks, you're never going to be anything more than an engineer's apprentice or, like, sidekick. And, like, he wasn't wrong. Like, he did kind of, like my marks were shit, like, absolutely crap. Like, I almost flunked out of, like, everything. And then,
well, why was that though? Because it seemed to me like you were always a bright kid growing up.
Man, I don't know. I think I have this weird thing with like, I'm either super interested or I have no interest whatsoever. Like, if something grabs my attention, I either usually go full in or just completely leave it alone. Like,
but it needs to grab your attention though, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one thing to like, I'll try a lot of things. That's the thing about me, is I'll try a lot of things I don't like, and I'll just leave them. I won't even, like, try and salvage whatever I've already tried. Like, if I get like 30% of the way into a project, like a new project, I'll have, like, I can just be like, you know what, this isn't working, this isn't in my field, I'm just gonna pay someone else to do this, or I'm gonna get help from someone that actually knows what they're doing. So yeah, I don't know. It's just, yeah.
When did you know that, like, this wasn't the usual path for you? Like, the path that everyone else takes about school and going to college, university, and all that.
Probably in high school, because well, everyone was getting prepared for college and university and all this. I was just honestly more, unfortunately, I was more focused on smoking weed and playing video games. Yeah, I wasn't by any means of the like any stretch of the imagination thinking I was gonna go anywhere in life by like before honestly I moved to Toronto. Like I kind of had like this thought of like I know I'm different in a sense that like I don't know anyone else that can necessarily just, oh, you need something, I can do that. You need something, I can do that. And it's like one thing will be like sewing, and the next thing will be like, I need you to build me a computer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, how like it's weird to think that you can go for this to the same person to get something done like cooking and technology, for example. Like I'm not necessarily a chef, but you know what I mean, just to give you the
Yeah, for
spectrum.
sure. And I've
I can
seen your cooking. Your cooking looks pretty decent.
yeah, I'm by no means a cook, but like you know what I mean. It's like it's just I like to do things. I don't know how to, and I think that's what kind of like was the first big eye opener is that I like I don't mind failing, and I'll actually fail a lot more times than people will try. I guess is one of the old sayings,
Yeah.
and I have no issue with that because like how do you know what you don't and do like in life until you've tried it, right?
Oh, I think
So
it's extremely important for sure.
yeah, exactly. So that's kind of what first kind of at least let me know like I don't think of myself as like, oh, like I'm different, like above or beyond, like above or under anyone. I'm well aware that I think differently,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that kind of just started and just how fascinated I am and everything, like where most people will be like, look, we'll take things for granted, like, oh, our phones turn on, like we have oxygen, we can put things together, like people are like, okay, I want to know how and why that works. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've always been like that. I've always been like that. I can't take things for granted. I'm like, you can tell me in detail how a motor works or an engine works, and I won't take your word for it until I see it with my own two eyes. Like I won't think you're lying, but I need to see it, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So yeah,
So,
I'm more the inner works of things is what I'm interested in. And I think that's a big thing.
so what did inspire you and motivate you growing up? Because you know, I know you got bored of a lot of things quickly, but when you didn't get bored of things, like what kind of things drove you to not be bored of it?
That's a tough question, honestly. Like, I think enjoyment's the number one thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't, as cocky as it may seem, like I don't do things I don't enjoy, and it's a blessing, honestly.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure, for sure. I mean,
like
that's probably why it was tough for you to be a student because like I don't think any kid enjoys going to school,
I
right?
heard that.
But some kids are successful at it, some kids are not so successful at it, right? And it doesn't really have anything to do with how smart they are either.
No, it
Uh,
was 100% motivation based for me.
yeah,
One second, I got my cat out of my door.
it's all good.
Trying to shut the door. There
But I
we
mean,
go.
I guess that grooms those kind of students to go out and be able to work jobs where they're just working for people and kind of told what to do, like what to do as
Yeah,
well.
I started to notice that a lot with a lot of the friends I grew up with, because by the time we were actually choosing programs to go into college and university, um, it like a lot of my friends kind of just I was like, where, what? You signed up for what? Where'd this come from? Like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, you're gonna build airplanes? You've never even talked about a freaking engine before in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? So that was kind of, I could see the people's like panic point was like grade 12, grade 11, where they're like, oh shit, I need to do something for
I
the
need to
rest
pick
of my
something
life.
now. Yeah, we're not
Yeah.
ready for that.
So a lot of people, unfortunately, don't have hobbies. Like, I'm blessed in the fact that I had a hobby that ties right in with my career.
Yeah.
But most people just kind of, again, they're just kind of just happy chilling with friends, watching stuff, playing video games. No one really had like a side project like, oh, I'm not playing with my friends, I'm building a computer, or like I have this side project. So it was really strange, like how I noticed a lot of people kind of just like panic dove into careers where even me, like I said, I've known what I've wanted to do since a very long time. And then when it eventually came time to choose a list for college, so to answer your previous question, which I'm realizing I did dodge now, is I actually did go to post-secondary twice, not
Okay.
just once. So I went for computer programming the first year. um, I was never a computer programmer per se. I was more of a computer engineer and mechanic and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I like to build computers,
Mm-hmm.
but I also knew the tendency I have to kind of drop stuff that I was like, I know this. I don't need to pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I figured my mom it was also the one that mentioned, she's like, you probably shouldn't go into something you're really good at because you're going to be like, I know this. And you're just not going to show up to classes. And I'm like, you know what? You're probably right. So I'm going to go take something that goes hand in hand. And I took computer programming.
Okay.
And programming was awesome. It got me introductory to like, you know, base coding. So like now I know how to code based off of what I just learned in the first couple semesters. Because now at least I know the building blocks and I know what I need to Google and so on, where before I didn't even know what I didn't know. Excuse me. But at the end of the day, it was still school, and school for me was just I don't know what it is about me. Like I just can't. I think it's more so the routine of school. I don't have any
Yeah, I
routine.
don't think it's for
Like,
everybody.
yeah, and the thing is with me, my life is very chaotic. Like I wake up when I want, I sleep when I want, I work what I want. Like so, school was like the opposite of that. But then
Yeah.
again, like
So, you said you wanted to get into computers and stuff like that. Did you always know you were going to get into computers? Did you have any other dreams of what you wanted to be when you grew up
well,
when you were young?
actually, the computers kind of came around in high school. I was more so because, like I was mentioning, I was more into like Lego and Connects and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And like when I was growing up, they didn't have like Lego Mindstorm and like the Connects with motors and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it was literally just snap together pieces. So
Mm-hmm.
everything was mechanical. So I wanted to be a mechanical engineer growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and then once I kind of got to the stage where I was telling you about, where I kind of started to take apart remote control cars and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, I was really fascinated by electronics. So I was like, no, I want to be an electronics engineer.
Mm.
And I kind of focused on just being, I don't even focus. I was just obsessed with electronics. Like I don't focus on anything. I get straight up obsessed with stuff. And that's what kind of makes it really good, because I'm like literally obsessed with it. I would do it with or without being paid.
Interesting.
Yeah. So then I went from electronics, and then I want to say grade 9, 10, around there, I kind of got heavy into gaming. Like I was always a gamer my whole life,
Yeah.
but this was the first time I was like, you know what? I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna build like a really nice computer. I'm gonna understand everything about computers. I'm gonna do everything I need to have a boss computer, and that's what I did. I spent weeks studying different parts, looking up, comparing different builds and stuff like that, and eventually, um, I built my first computer, or like first serious computer, and I was like, whoa, that's a lot of fun. This is just like big boy Lego is what I can. That's what I call it.
It's
I call
true.
it big. I literally just call it big boy Lego, and it has the mechanical engineering aspects of like mashing parts together, and the electronics. Even though it's pretty straightforward, you kind of just put it together and it works. So it kind of went into that, and I was like, yo, I really like computers, and now I'm not building computers so much anymore, but I'm doing like electronic work by fixing MacBooks and stuff like that. It's closer to like electronic engineering than computer engineering for sure.
It's true. So it seems to me like it's really natural for you to like pick things up like really quickly, right? When you're learning, and you mentioned being obsessed, and I'm sure that helps a lot. So, well, like, what's your actual practical approach to learning? Like, when you want to learn about something, like, you buckle down, do you read for like hours about it? And, like,
You
just
don't
just walk us through that.
you don't hear from me for days. I disappear. I become absorbed in my work. Like I remember, um, it goes hand in hand. I think I might have OCD. I get really, 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 really absorbed into whatever task is at hand,
Mm-hmm.
and I take stuff personally almost, especially if I know what the end goal is going to be or supposed to be. Then, if I actually want to achieve it, then there's almost nothing that can stop me from getting there, and that is including myself. Like I won't sleep, I won't eat. I'll just straight up study and work.
How do you learn? Do you learn more by reading or by doing?
Trial and error.
Trial and error for sure.
I can read something 100 times, or I can fail at it twice and be like, "Oh, that's not like that's how you don't do it." And
Mm-hmm.
then eventually, yeah, I don't know. I've been definitely more of a hands-on kind of person. Like always, I not that I don't like reading. It just I would much rather, like, if I'm gonna read, it's usually instructions.
True. Yeah.
It's weird.
Did you have like many mentors growing up? Did you ever have mentors growing up, or is everything really just self-taught?
Um, I did have one person I guess I could consider a mentor. I have a buddy named Marcus. Growing, he's still my friend now, thankfully. He was also big into computers and very much like me, where he didn't do well in school. He dropped out of school, but was always really motivated in technology and making money and finding a way to be self-sufficient off of doing something he loves. And it happened to be computers. So a lot of my early on questions, I would just go straight to Marcus. Yo, Marcus, how would I, I want to do this, or I need this. Like, how would I find this? Like those kind of questions always went to Marcus, and Marcus was definitely always there for me. And at one point, Marcus got hired at BlackBerry, so he went more towards cell phones and customer service and back end type like corporate. And I kind of stuck with what he taught me. So now he comes to me for some stuff. So it's funny to see how that happens.
It's full
But other
circle a
than
little bit.
yeah, but other than Marcus, I never actually had like an actual mentor like in person. Like I looked up to Adam Savage. a lot. Like one of the Mythbusters, Adam Savage and Jamie Hyneman. Those guys were kind of always just like, I would watch them in awe all the time.
Yeah, they know what they're doing for sure.
Not even just that they know what they're doing, it's just that they're doing it and they're living off of it.
That's true. Yeah, they're building, they're experimenting. They got a TV show off it.
Yeah, so what I mean. So like I'd watch, especially Adam Savage, and watch the kind of reactions he would have to his own projects. You know, when something just goes absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
And like even this little smirk I'm getting on my face right now is just thinking about the times that it happens, which is super rare. But when it does work out, oh,
yeah,
like
there's no feeling better.
Yeah, so seeing the reaction that Adam Savage gives off in the Mythbusters really motivated me. I was like, yo, I want to look at my own projects and just be like, yes. And honestly, it's been a couple of times now where I've looked at something and it's been like, I made this with my own 2 hands. And that is a huge driving force. Honestly, nothing feels better than literally making something from scratch that you love. Like, it's awesome. It's almost like a child. I mean, I can't speak for it because I don't have any, but like, it's your own creation that you thought of, put together, and assembled, and, you know, got functional. Like that stuff. Ugh, I can't even put words behind the feeling that I get behind a completed project.
And you must have like a ton of confidence in yourself to do things too, right? Like you don't. I mean, in order for you to create things, like you first have to tell yourself like, this isn't impossible. Like I could do this. Like I could build this and it's gonna work.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely stay in my lane at the same time. I'm well aware of what humans can do on an X budget in X laboratory, aka my room.
Yeah.
So I'm well aware there's some things I could or shouldn't do, things I can and can't do. Like there's a definitely a thin line, but I'd like to push that line as much as I can. So yeah, I'd say I have like a decent bit of confidence in myself when it comes to what I'm good at. Because like I said, I have tried a lot of things. I've failed at a lot of things. I've actually succeeded at a few things.
For
so
sure.
I definitely know what to stay away from, what to, you know, like be, you know, cocky about, or, you know, flex my stuff, being like, no, I know this. So yeah, 100%. Like, and even then, if it's something I don't know, I love learning. So I'll try and learn it. And if it seems like something non-feasible for someone that's sitting in their bedroom trying to assemble something, then it's the next idea, or find a different way of approaching it.
For sure. Is there anybody else you look up to, like the Elon Musks of the world and stuff?
Definitely Elon Musk. I like, as of right now, the only man left, I would say, that's still like, well, to be fair, he's the only man I know ever that could just really do whatever he wanted and it just works. Like, if I had the budget, and I think it's more so the authority, because I don't even know who's allowing him to do half the stuff he does.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know you could just launch stuff into space or just dig holes under California and stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
or under LA. Like, these are the kind of ideas I also have. Like, I have these far-fetched ideas, but like they're quickly swept under the rug because I'm like, who would fund a 25-year-old stoner kid like just with these crazy ass ideas living out of his bedroom?
Oh, you never know, man. But yeah, I know what you mean, for sure.
I'll fund myself. Hopefully we get to the point where I don't need to rely on anyone else.
Yeah, for sure. Just got to get your message out there and just get people to know that you're around.
Exactly.
So what kind of things you got on the go right now besides the MacBook building and the computer engineering?
I'm doing like you said, I'm doing a lot of MacBook repairs and like computer repairs. Actually, computer assembly is kind of slowed down. I'm not really focusing too much on that anymore just because it's not too profitable. A lot of people are like really, really picky about how much they want to spend on a computer, not really leaving you much to
profit off of.
Leaving enough money. Yeah, I don't want to say profit off of, because because the way I did it is I did a flat fee, but most people, like, once the actual fee's been included on top of their parts, most people are like, it's unaffordable and stuff like that. So I was like, you know what, like, it's not worth the amount of time to pay out. So it kind of scratched that. But other than that, like, I started a little company about a year and a bit ago called the MIDI Workshop, which focuses on building like MIDI controllers. Actually, I have a couple right here.
Yeah, just want to show us.
So I 3D print these instruments. They're MIDI controllers. They send notes to they're like drum pads.
Yeah,
it's the best way to explain them. You hit a button and the sound comes out. So I 3D print.
Now what are they called? They're called the kunais, or the kunais?
I call them the kunais. Yeah, the kunai is the actual, like, my brand of them.
Yeah.
The whole idea is that they're small and compact, much like an actual kunai. And what are those of you that don't know,
Oh
this
yeah,
is a kunai.
it's like a blade or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the ninja throwing knife,
Okay.
the stereotypical ninja throwing knife. So small, compact, and lethal. That was the idea behind the kunai's
True.
naming. But these are 3D printed instruments. I have a little 3D printer over here. That's my workhorse. It does all of the bodies for these. Actually, I have a couple that are assembled, so even better. So it prints out the case, for example. It does the whole base of the case, the top of the case, and I've actually started getting to the point where I actually 3D print the motherboards that. Where's my camera at? There we go.
That's crazy.
Even the motherboards themselves are 3D printed at this point.
How'd you learn how to do that? Like the
3D printing?
No, yeah, both the motherboard and the 3D printing.
So the 3D printing was kind of just a balls to the wall move, like about 2.5 years ago. I don't remember exactly where I saw the 3D printer, but I think it was on Amazon, and I was like, oh, like you're definitely a lot more affordable than when I thought you were. So the printer I bought was $500. So it's not cheap by any means, but it's not the thousands of dollars that 3D printers used to cost. And at that point in time, I was still making the kunais, but at the time I was making the whole body out of I would just buy a giant sheet of acrylic, and I would take it to the wood shop. I'd cut it out, I'd drill the holes, and 100% of the time they were never the same because it was made by hand. So I would have to drill the holes, cut it out, all that stuff by hand, and there was always user error, which meant no two kunais would ever be the same in a bad way, though, not in a unique way, which made it very difficult for me to wire them up, get everything looking pretty and all that. So in my head, I was like, I need to find a way to make this more streamlined and exactly the same. So the idea of the 3D printer came to mind. I saw that they're affordable. I bought one for the sake of making kunais for me exactly the same every time without me having to spend literally hours of cutting and drilling and sanding acrylic.
Oh, man.
Not to mention acrylic's actually really expensive too. So it was a huge cut to my costs in the end of the day. And so that's where it started. And then honestly, the 3D printer was the last thing probably one of the last things I remember where I wasn't actually 100% confident in myself, because I have not done anything 3D modeling, 3D printing ever in my life. So I was like, okay, this is a $500 excuse me, it's a $500 test. So I was kind of skeptical on that. I was like if I buy a $500 printer and I end up, it's not that I won't try and learn it, is that if it's literally just too much for me to wrap my head around, or like too time consuming or something, then it's going to end up being a $500 hole in my wallet just sitting on my desk taking up space.
For sure.
Yeah, but thankfully it went well. 3D printing is not as complicated as one would imagine, and it worked out, and in the end they make perfect kunais every time.
Now, the kunais, did you is this something that you had passion in? Like, 'cause I know you were into music production a little bit before too, and then like, how did you get into the finger drumming?
So I used to watch this show called G4 Tech TV way back in the day, and I saw this group called the Glitch Mob perform a little tech demo on G4 Tech, and they used the same ideas. Like, they would not kunais, but they'd use pad instruments and little touch screens with buttons on them and stuff, and they played as a band. But long story short, there was no actual instruments other than these little drum pads. And not only was I absolutely obsessed with their music, like their music is, they're still my number one group till this day. I was obsessed with their music before I've actually watched them on G4 Tech TV. But then when I saw that they actually did their music live, that just, I don't know, something about that caught my eye so hard, because I already played piano to a certain degree. Like, I'm not fluent or anything, but I love like learning songs and stuff on piano. So watching them play the drum beats, but like with non-classic piano sounds, it hit me somewhere special, clearly. So after that's kind of where my music production even started. And then I started off, I think I was just like honestly just scrolling through YouTube type thing, like homemade instruments and type stuff. And then I saw a homemade drum pad, a tutorial for a homemade drum pad by a guy named Kyle Moore. And I followed that, and I made my first, what would have been called the kunai. They were just essentially the same thing, except for they were just sheet of acrylic on top of another sheet of acrylic with like standoffs between, and a whole mess of wires under it. And so after I built a couple of those, and people actually were like, "Yo, that's really cool stuff," I was like, "Okay, I need to make this a legitimate project, like a legitimate product." So that's where the motherboard kind of came in hand. It's because it's a very simple motherboard that just replaces a bunch of wires going between buttons and the processor that sends the notes. Not to get too technical. So the motherboard, all it does is replace the wires. Long story short. So I don't have buttons with a mess of wires coming out from under it, because that's you can't really sell that. It looks stupid and makes you look dumb. So I was like, let's get this looking like something an actual company would produce.
Legit, yeah.
Yeah. So I looked into how to make simple motherboards at home. And the most common way is that you'd get some sort of wax paper, you'd print your motherboard pattern on it, you'd get your piece of copper, which is what your motherboard's actually made out of. You would transfer your motherboard design from the wax paper onto copper using like a clothing iron or something like that to get the ink to melt off. And then you'd sit the whole copper board in what's called ferric acid. And what that does is it eats all the copper away from the board, except for where you put the ink down with your design on it. So by the time it's done eating all the copper, you just have your little traces or wires left behind. So long story short, it was kind of like a masking. So you'd essentially draw on the copper board, throw the copper in the acid. It would dissolve anything that hasn't been written on, and then you'd wipe away what's been written on, and there's still copper left under it, which got me thinking, like, it was a terrible process. The transfer process for the ink was really bad. Like, not all the ink would transfer, and then when you develop the board in the acid, you'd have like little chunks of your traces missing, or like extra copper where you can't have copper and stuff like that. So it was super inaccurate. So I was like, accurate. It's inaccurate. You know what's really accurate is the 3D printer I already own. That thing's pretty accurate because it can do like 0.1 millimeters of accuracy, so a micron or something like that. So it took me about a year of figuring out how can I get a 3D printer to print a motherboard pattern onto a piece of copper. And then after I got that, I threw it in the acid, it developed, and I took it out, and I was in awe. I was like, holy crap, This is like literally the best. Like, it looks like a motherboard any manufacturer would make. Like, it looks like 110% like made in China. It's shipped to me, but I just made it with like a 3D printer, a couple minutes, and like cents of materials. And that kind of led to these
awesome, man.
all streamlined and all packaged together. So it was kind of, like I said, order of operations is a huge thing for me. I constantly try and progress.
And do you prefer to play on yours versus like what's already out there on the market? I guess that's what pushed you to create these things in the first place, right?
Yes and no. I mean, to be fair, I'm not going to be like, oh, it's my product, I only play my product. I'm not an elitist like that. Like, there's definitely quirks. I wouldn't call them quirks. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just there's other instruments that do other things better. Each instrument, like mine, is amazing for taking on the road because it's literally super small. You can actually, since it has like no lights or any extra fancy stuff, you can actually plug it into an iPhone or an Android phone, and it's compatible with those. Whereas like what I usually play on, for example, is right here. I use the machine usually, so as you can see, a lot bigger, so I can't really carry this thing around. But the better thing is, I mean, I kind of decorated it so it kind of looks good in videos, and it has, all these knobs and extra doodads that realistically aren't needed, but sometimes they're nice to have. So I kind of just use that. Also, I don't want to throw it away or sell it, so it's just kind of.
Can I map these onto my DJ software and stuff too?
Oh yeah, 100%. Since MIDI is a universal language, so anything that can accept MIDI mapping or MIDI learning, so like almost every DAW at this point in time can be used with this. Like, you just push a button on, like, let's say I'm assuming you use Tractor or Serato.
Serato, yeah.
Yeah, so like, let's say you wanted to bind this button to play. You literally just go to your key mappings. You click on your play button in Serato,
and then map it to that. That's awesome.
And then it would do and it's done.
And it's so compact too that it'll fit on like most DJ tables without much more space. So that I definitely see the advantage in that.
It fits exactly. Another thing that was actually really nice about it, I didn't really notice until after I made it, is they're actually about the same size as
just the pad.
Just the pads on the rest of the machine, so you can kind of see what the actual useful part is.
That's awesome, dude. Well, let's cut to a scene of you working a little bit of magic with your finger drumming.
Cool.
See if I pull it up. Yeah, it was dope. I know you didn't hear it, but you know which video I'm talking about. It was pretty dope.
I know what video you're talking about. I love that video.
That's pretty cool. And I think you were using the other pad that you were just showing me before, right?
The machine, yeah.
Yeah.
Machine. Actually, for someone that makes a lot of instruments, I don't tend to keep any for myself, as strange as it is. I haven't designed one for myself by any stretch of the imagination. I should probably do that, but
it's all good. It's nice to sell them too. So that's your goal, I guess, right? To mass produce these a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So I got like a little website set up right now. I just actually took the motherboards even further. Now I'm gonna get them assembled in China, so cut some more costs and make them even more professional. Just kind of working with I have another hardware engineer guy that I'm working with that's pretty legit, so I'm having him help me out a little bit with stuff that I don't understand, and hopefully after that it's just honestly just finding the motivation to go full balls, because once I said something like this would be my first big set in stone, you know what I mean, because I'm actually producing something, I'm getting it manufactured,
for sure.
I have the website, I have the marketing and all that, so it'd be my first legit big step. Like I've done a bunch of these small projects and like small batches of stuff where I'll sell like only 10 or 15 or something and then stop making them. And that's kind of fine, because like when you make 10, 15 of something, it's not a huge loss if you don't sell any of them. But in this case, if I were to get the order done from China and they don't sell, then I'm pretty screwed for a while.
Yeah, for sure.
So long story short, I gotta make it happen.
Because there's like a minimum order, I guess, like if you could be manufacturing them in China.
It's not just the issue of the minimum order. It's also like these things aren't actually cheap to produce. Like I wish I like being 100% honest. Like I sell them for $250. They cost me $100 to make right now. I understand some people like, oh my god, it's 150% graze. That's nothing in the world.
It's a lot of labor too, though.
Yeah, it's a lot of labor, and like I said, $100 fixed cost just to buy the parts on assembly is quite expensive for something I'm only selling for about double the cost.
Yeah.
So yeah, actually the cost is the big scary monster for me in this one. Like money is not usually an issue for me, but to go even just to buy 10 of them, that's $1,000.
Yeah, you're gonna have to front the cost for that for sure.
Yeah, so I would definitely have to make it worth it, and do the proper due diligence with marketing and actually getting some sort of hype behind them, which is actually both of these are made for two actually really big finger drumming DJs. That are both like multi-million followers type thing on Instagram and YouTube. So hopefully that's like hopefully that's going to be a nice kickstart, and hopefully they enjoy them enough to, I'm not asking them to share them by any means or post them, but hopefully they're just going to appreciate them enough that they just feel like the world should see what was made for them. And if that's the case, then who knows? Like
I think that's an awesome strategy. So are those ones done, like ready to go?
Yeah. This one is actually already shipped to the guy, but he happened to be on tour when it got there, because it was in Germany. It took it about 3.5 weeks to get there, so a bit of a mistiming thing. So it got to him while he was on tour, and he couldn't collect it, and actually just got back to me yesterday.
Oh, it just got sent back to you, yeah.
Yeah, so this one's going out to a guy named Mad Zach, which is probably one of my bigger finger drum influences. I get a lot of my samples and sound packs from him, and then this one's going out to a guy by the name of Sean Wasabi. So yeah, there's a bunch of little, like, it's harder to see because of the contrast, but there's a bunch of just like little emojis all around the thing.
Oh, that's sick.
He's just like a kawaii Asian guy, so I'm like, you know what, this seems kind of perfect.
Yeah, that is pretty dope. Like the customizability of these are pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's one of my main selling points is the fact that since like I have access to a 3D printer, and since 3D printing is actually fairly simple, especially to modify an existing 3D printed structure like the base model, I was like, you know what? Like, you want a custom kunai? I'm not going to charge you. Every kunai comes with whatever you want on it, unless you happen to want some material which I don't have, then you're paying for it.
Of
And
course.
then after that, I don't charge anyone extra for the materials I already have as long as someone's already paid for it. So it's kind of like a team thing. I'm hoping I'm hoping people are gonna like that business model.
For sure, dude. There's definitely a lot of value in it, for sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
hopefully.
Back to your skills in like 3D printing, like
Shoot.
the skills that helped you produce these. Like, what else are you able to do with the 3D printing? Because I know you can do like prototypes for people. It's like it's so multi-purpose right now, right? And there's like such a
Yeah.
huge future in 3D printing.
So I remember one of my first big 3D print, it wasn't even big like in terms of scale, but on my keyboard, these little legs.
Yeah,
So I broke these quite some time ago.
yeah.
Just being a gamer and probably smashed my keyboard or something stupid, and they broke. And I looked for quite some time for replacements, and the only ones I could find were like $35,
Oh man.
and it would take like a couple weeks to come in. So I'm like, absolutely not. And then I kind of realized, I'm like, hey, these are just plastic. I'm sure someone has dealt with the same thing. So sure enough, I just Googled like my keyboard model legs, and then the abbreviation .stl, which is a kind of file that the 3D printers use. And
Interesting.
sure enough, someone had the exact same issue and had already posted the files online for anyone to download and print. And that's exactly what I did. I'm still using them, and that was my first kind of, this thing can be really useful for around the house kind of
For
thing.
sure. You could
So,
basically create whatever you want if you need to.
well, I have.
Yeah.
I have like stuff like that just holds my towels up in my kitchen. I have things that hold my toothbrush in the washroom. I 3D printed a little phone stand just like yesterday.
Oh, awesome.
Like anything, it's just cool. Like, and like you can print toys. Like there's a little armadillo I 3D printed that's like fully actuating. You know what I mean?
That's
You can
awesome.
curls up and all that. So it's like, oh yeah. So it's like it can be childish. You can make little toys with it at the same time, but at the same time, you can get some serious things done. Like I remember I had a buddy that had Ray-Ban glasses that had the folding in the middle, so they would fold like this,
Yeah.
and then these like the arms would fold down the middle, and then the actual frame would fold in the middle.
Oh
And I
wow.
guess there's like a little peg or like a little thing that sits in there, and it broke. And Buddy took it to I forget what store, not that it matters, and it would have been like $150 repair
Mm-hmm.
for just a literally like probably like 2 grams of plastic with 2 holes in it.
Yeah.
So I googled Ray-Ban blah 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 STL, and sure enough, someone had the exact same issue. It took me
Wow.
literally it printed in 2 minutes. It took like 4 cents of materials, and I just popped it in my buddy's glasses and fixed them. So like it has really like real world applications beyond just making toys. Like as someone that I since I build a lot of things, there's a lot of like things I wish I had that they don't make. For
Mm-hmm.
example, like, you know what I mean? Or I need one of something, and they only sell packs of it. Or like it would take me forever to get this. So stuff like that is awesome. So I 3D print washers all the time.
Yeah.
I'm buying a pack of washers. I'm like, yo, I can 3D print that in like literally a couple seconds for a couple cents. I'm not like just going to the store is a bigger hassle than 3D printing it.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. So,
So yeah,
so
it's
are the
awesome.
STOs easy to find? Like, are they all over the internet? Is there like a big community of people who share these things?
You would have no idea how big this community is. I was like, I'm still in awe. Most of the time I can't Google something without finding what I'm looking for.
Wow.
It's very rare that I can't find what I'm looking for with an STL or for the 3D printer. And since they're like 3D printers they use files that have been around forever. Like if you've ever taken a tech class in high school and had to build something in like a 3D project,
Yeah.
you could literally take that you built in high school, drop it into the 3D printer, do nothing, and it prints it.
Wow.
So it's really intuitive in that way where like you don't necessarily need to know what you're doing even.
Is it hard to program these STOs though? So let's say you want to create a prototype of something that doesn't even exist yet.
No, not necessarily. It's kind of like what you're actually making is just a 3D model of it, like the STL, just
Okay.
is one of the file types, much like an exe or .jpeg or something like that. So what you're making is an actual object. So or like usually they're .objs, .stls, which is a stencil or an object or something like that. And long story short, it's just you're putting pieces in different shapes together, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it depends on the on your competence with the 3D modeling
With
program.
designing and 3D modeling.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. But as soon as the actual 3D model is done, the rest, like the actual translation between a 3D model and a 3D printed object, since you got to keep in mind 3D printers don't just here's an object, they actually have to print layer by layer, starting from the bottom up. So it has to kind of know what it's doing for each layer.
Mm-hmm.
The conversion between the actual like thing that you made in 3D and the actual thing that's printing is all taken care of by the 3D printing software. So you literally just need to be able to learn how to 3D design or learn how to Google enough to get your 3D designs, and then also just know how to maintain your printer and how it's supposed to work in terms of like small things like the distance between the nozzle and like where it actually builds onto. Like that's kind of the only kind of things you really need to pay attention to. It's fairly easy.
You mined like cryptocurrencies for a little bit too, right? So it's a pretty opportunistic hustle that you had going on there. Do you tend to like capitalize on these hustles sometimes? And tell me how you got started in that. And was that easy to do?
So funny enough, cryptocurrency was only reason I was introduced to it was because of Silk Road. And if you weren't familiar with Silk Road, it was like it was an online marketplace for drugs. Long story short, you could only pay for with bitcoins, which were these. I mean, I'm sure you know, is like the non-traceable type of currency at the time.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, it's gray market now. Back then, it might as well have just been a ghost. Unless you're buying drugs, you pretty much didn't know what a Bitcoin was. So that's kind of how I mean, I didn't personally buy drugs, but I had a bunch of friends that would ask me, how do I get this? How do I get that? I'm like, oh, you just go to the dark web, you buy some Bitcoin, and you go buy your LSD. Yeah. So that's kind of like my first introduction to it. And I was in early high school. And then I just just for the hell of it, like I bought a couple when I was in early high school, and my first Bitcoins I've ever owned were actually just donated to me for making signature forums. Like back in the day, signature forums were a huge thing where you're on a forum, and every time, like if you're a really active member of the community and you want to be recognized, you'd have a little signature on the bottom of your name.
Yeah.
And that was, required a decent bit of Photoshop skills to be able to get something looking awesome and with your name in it and all that.
Yeah.
So I would make signatures for people, and I would just do it just for the reputation of the forum, because people would go and like give me a thumbs up on my profile type thing.
Yeah.
So I would just do it just to build a reputation and nothing else other than that. But then I had a few people just be like, yo, thanks for the signature. Here's a couple Bitcoins. That's kind of just like a kudos. And take in mind, it's like 2012, 2013, around there.
Yeah.
So like they may have gave me like 6 or 7 Bitcoins, but that was not even worth 6 or 7 cents at the time.
Wow.
Where now, like, they would have gave me over like a couple $100,000 at like its peak. You know what I mean?
Peak, yeah.
Yeah. So like that's where my first.
Did you hang on to them? Like, what did you do with them? Did you hang on to those Bitcoins?
I lost them.
Oh man.
Yeah, I have like, I don't even want to say the number. Just way too much money lost in Bitcoin. I had like 15 from one wallet that I just. Again, when I was dealing with them, these things were nothing. I didn't care about
for
them.
sure.
Like, it's not like, oh, shit, I threw out my computer with my Bitcoin wallet still on there. It was like, nah, format. Are you sure your Bitcoin wallet's going to get formatted? Yeah, I don't give a shit. Why would I care? It was kind of more like that. Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it was literally just like someone giving me sticks. I'm like,
yeah, exactly. You had other things. You wanted to like pull your personal photos off of that picture, and that was more valuable to you at the time.
Exactly. I did not care about them at all. And then it was, when was the first time that I was kind of just like, oh, so then time went on, cryptocurrencies got some sort of value. Like a Bitcoin was worth like a couple bucks at a time. I still remember I really wanted to go to a show in London. When I still lived in London, I wanted to go see Cruella really bad for Halloween. And I didn't have any money. But so I was like, all right, so I'm going to try this cryptocurrency mining thing, because I have a really nice gaming computer, and apparently that's what you need for crypto mining. So I started mining, I think it was Dogecoin. Yeah, it was Dogecoin.
Yeah, I love Dogecoin.
So I started mining those. And by the end of the week and a bit, I had like $30 saved up in Dogecoin that I just traded into Bitcoin and then sold. And I bought my concert tickets like that. And those concert tickets would have cost me about $85,000 now. So, but that was like my first introduction of being like, oh, I can just leave my computer on for a couple days and I can buy tickets. Sick. Like, I wasn't even thinking of it as a monetary thing. I was just thinking of it as like, I could buy a game every couple months, or like. stupid shit like that. Because I was a child. Like I don't really have. I don't plan too far in the future, even now. Like I'm more about instant gratification. So it's like, oh, I'd rather like at the time, my thought process was literally, oh, I'll liquidate all my bitcoins and buy concert tickets. Not that, oh, maybe these bitcoins will be worth something one day. That didn't happen in my head. So it kind of just time went on. They got more expensive. They got more expensive. They got more expensive. There was a certain point, I think it was 2 years ago, September, where I was just like, you know what, I want to get on this like seriously. So I started buying. Me and my roommate and I bought some Bitcoin miners. We set those up for a bit. We mined them until I got a new roommate. That I can't operate the miners while my buddy's sleeping in the room. So
yeah,
the idea is not abandoned. We still have all the hardware. They're just not running, but we do still have all the profits from them. And as far as cryptocurrency now, it's just kind of just trading for us. None of us are, by us, I say me and my roommate, because we kind of had like a joint venture kind of thing. Like we kind of feed it off each other's hype.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime he'd buy something, I'd buy something. We'd discuss business ideas and which crypto to invest into and when to pull out type thing.
Yeah.
So once we kind of both kind of just like let it go, now we're just trading with the money we've already printed or mined.
True.
So yeah.
So what are your thoughts and feelings on money anyways? What does money mean to you? And like, are you ever like worried about money? Because I know you have the confidence and the ability for yourself to make money, but yeah, how do you feel about it?
It's a weird question, man.
Like think about it in your life in terms of
like the idea behind it. If like, are you asking me like that?
Yeah, like what's your idea behind money? Like how important is it to you in your life and stuff like that?
To me, I mean, honestly, if I had a choice, I would not have money. Like not me personally, but no one would have money. And in the essence that like everything would be done barter and trade and services and stuff like that. Like that would be like the dream world to me, even though I haven't really thought about it too deep because I don't know how you'd get rich. But at that point, I don't know if you'd want to get rich kind of thing. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, I mean, people are greedy, right? Eventually, you find someone just taking advantage of people.
It's a matter of time before someone is tired of eating the same food everybody else is.
Yeah, wants to get ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I mean, because like you're young, like you living out in Toronto right now, it's not cheap out there. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of people in your situation would probably be like pretty stressed out about money.
I'm honestly not stressed about money. I'm kind of like the blessing about me is that I do services. I do a lot of services, so I don't actually need anything other than what's in here to make money. Like bring me a broken laptop, I don't need anything other than a screwdriver and maybe some like rubbing alcohol to make a couple $100.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so I'm not necessarily too worried about it. Like I'm not worried about money at all, and by any means. I don't like it. I don't like money in the essence that it turns people hungry and their true colors start to shine.
Yeah, it's an amplification, I guess, of
yeah. And I posted a while ago. As one of my statuses that we live in a super flex society. What I call it, a super flex society where everything is just measured by how thick your wallet is, and not how much you know or what you contribute to. Not even society, just what you contribute. Just period. Like
yeah, what you can do for somebody, really.
Your friend, exactly.
What your value is to someone else. Yeah,
exactly. So I'd much rather be valuable as a intellectual, like, because that's like, than just be valuable fiscally. Like I really don't care. Like
yeah, and that's why I brought you on, because I know that you're very self-sufficient when it comes to money, right? That was one of the main reasons that I mentioned earlier in the show that I wanted to talk to you about this. So I mean, do you have a message for other young people like yourself who might be struggling with money and they don't know what to do for like a side hustle? Like what's your message to people like that? Do you feel like they could do what you do? Like if they really put in the time and all the work that you put in and learning?
100%. One of the few things that gets me really, really mad is when people say not everyone can be like you. It's like, what do you mean? I'm a double dropout. I didn't have an exceptional childhood. I was kind of the fucking odd brown kid out in a white society. Like I grew up in a conservative white area with all conservative white people in my school. I was the only Arab kid that had even a drop of melanin in his skin. So I was always the outcast. And like, so it's discouraged. It's easy to be discouraged. Honestly, it's so easy to be discouraged. But
yeah,
one of my favorite lines was from Tyler Trader, and that's success is the best revenge. Honestly, there's no better way than like, it's kind of unhealthy, I think, in the essence that I kind of had I still do have the I'll show them kind of mentality, but it's not in an unhealthy way. Like, I'll show them by doing better, not by putting them down or anything. So if I had a message for people that want to be self-sufficient or want to do whatever, anything I do for that matter, is like, just do it. Like, just keep on keeping on. I hate that saying, but it's so true. Just keep on keeping on. Like, to fail more times than more people will try, it says a lot. It says a lot about your character. It says a lot about your mental strength. It says a lot about your true colors, because if you're willing, like, if there's a reason you got up and tried again, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, you know what the end goal is. You know what it should look like. That's not how it turned out. This is why you're mad. It's why you're sad, but it's also why you got back up and tried it again, because you want that end goal. And as long as you keep your eyes on the prize, kind of thing, honestly, I think that's one of the big things. And have fun doing it. Honestly, don't do something you don't like. You're not going to succeed in something you don't like. And if you do, you're not going to be truly happy. Like, that's probably the number one thing for me, like I said, is my enjoyment. Like, everything I do just happens to be something I love doing, which is awesome. I'll never look at something I do in a day and just be like, I would rather be playing video games. It's like, nah, like, I like building computers. I like fixing MacBooks. I'd actually rather be doing this than playing video games, because it's like a puzzle to me, or whatever.
Where did you get like your confidence and your fearlessness from, and your fearlessness of failure?
I'm definitely not fearless of failure. I'm definitely not fearless of failure. I can't. That's probably one of the furthest things I am. Like, and when it comes to my field, I'm confident, but every other aspect of my life, like whether it's women or like my future aspect or prospects and all that stuff, dude, I'm so unconfident. Like, I don't have the confidence that I wish I had, and the confidence I wish I had from my other things I'm actually good at. Like, so the confidence for like my actual field, like, to be very specific, like I said, I'm not a confident person in general, but I am when it comes to like my stuff that's in my lane. I owe a lot of it to my parents, honestly.
True.
Like I said, I could have been like, I was the kid that destroyed every electronic in the house.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, it was beneficial because I understand how they work now, and it was, a kickstart to something bigger. But where I feel like most people's parents would have kicked their ass for taking apart the home phone, my parents were a lot more lax about it. And I think that's a big driving force of why I got to just do this, is because I never was, not going to say that there was never repercussions, but the repercussions were very slim.
I think you had the freedom, right? Like, because I was reading stuff about greatness and how do you become great, and one of the things was, you have to give them like unstructured play, right, for them to develop that creativity.
Yeah, dude, I 100% agree with that. Because like I said, like, if my parents would have beat my ass my parents beat my ass by like any stretch of the imagination, but it wasn't for taking the phone apart. It wasn't for taking apart my computer. It wasn't for taking apart my toys. It was for being insubordinate and stupid.
Yeah.
Like, so like my morality got drove in through violence, but like my actual skills were exactly as you said. It was absolute freedom. Like, my parents, they'd get mad. They get like, what are you doing?
Yeah, but they wouldn't like smash your hands so that you would never touch electronics again or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, no, it was actually it was cool because every time I wasn't afraid to bring stuff to them. I would be like, yo, look what I made, and they'd be stoked, be like, huh, you made that? Like, you know what I mean? So a big part of it was actually my parents. Like, they were blessings for creativity.
That's awesome, man.
They didn't necessarily, like, my dad especially understood. Like, I remember, especially around the time I was building the air gun for my grade 8 science fair project, I still remember just leaking my dad's wallet everywhere because I wasn't necessarily, like, I was 14. I didn't understand how everything was supposed to work. I kind of had a broad idea, but as I said earlier, I'm more of a trial and error kind of guy. So yeah. I would buy the parts. It wouldn't work. I'd have to go back to my dad. Hey, can we drive to Home Depot? I need to get some more valves or whatever. And he's like, oh, this thing has already cost me like $250. Why can't you, can I just buy you a BB gun for like $50? And it wasn't it was no. I'm like, I want to build this. Like, I want it to be my air gun. And then eventually, like, you know what I mean? So he never opposed to it. He was always kind of just like, it's going towards your learning. Shit.
Oh, that's good, man. He invested in your learning then for sure.
Yeah, no, 100%. My parents invested in my learning. Like, I feel like I've let them down by dropping out of school twice, but they definitely gave birth to something more than a
For
student.
sure. Yeah, no, you're doing something good for sure with yourself.
I'd like to hope so.
Yeah. So let's wrap up with the question I'd like to try to ask of every episode within this series. But what do you think are like the three most important things that go into like a good hustler?
Persistence. Definitely persistence. Like, don't just lapse. Don't, like, if you have to lose sleep, lose sleep. If you have to, you know, grind for more hours than you're comfortable, then grind for more hours than you're comfortable. Then if you got to try something that you're not necessarily comfortable with, try it. Like, it's just all about being persistent towards, again, seeing that big picture and not letting anything stop you between here and there. And any kind of hurdle that's kind of in the way, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, honestly. So getting to that actual big picture after dodging bullets and, you know, potholes and all this is going to be like, whoa, what a ride. So I think that's one. Two is motivation, which is one I kind of struggle with time to time personally, but to be motivated is a big thing of it. It kind of goes hand in hand with persistence.
Yeah.
You find that you're persistent through motivation. Like, if you know what your end goal is, again, and you're you know this is your goal in life, for example, then again, be persistent towards it.
So you got to pick the right motivation, I guess.
Right,
So,
like,
yeah.
and find, like, pull motivation out of stuff, like examples and stuff like that. Like, if you, like, for me, I want to be someone like Adam Savage. So, like, he's my motivation. Like, I want to be that.
Yeah.
Where, like, you know, to get there, that's where the persistence comes in.
So it comes to like setting goals and reaching your goals and stuff.
Yeah. And then three, ooh, I got a good one. It's probably rare. Be good to people. It's so underrated, and it's crazy how far it can go by just being a good person. And, like, it sucks that you get crushed for it sometimes,
Yeah.
but you know what? Like, that again comes with the motivation and persistence. If you're a good person, be persistently a good person. Be motivated by being good.
For sure.
It reciprocates. Like, people will see that you're happy. People will see that you're truthful. People will see that you're not an asshole or a snake, and you're a genuine person, and it will reflect, dude. Like, and I don't want to, like, talk highly of myself in any essence, because I'm truly humble in that way.
No, we could tell, man. You could tell that you're a good dude, man.
Like, I get a lot of people saying like, dude, like, you're honestly just a genuine guy. Like, you don't, like, I mean, I'm not always nice. I'm an asshole sometimes, but, like,
And you're allowed to be.
that's part of being genuine. Like,
Yeah.
I am exactly what you see at face value. I'm not hiding anything. Like, this whole, like, don't have alternative motives. Like, just straight up be a good person. It's hard enough being one person. Don't try and be two-faced. Don't have, you know, say one thing to someone and have some alternative motive in the background, or like some hidden agenda, which is what I feel like a lot of people have. And
no doubt.
What's better than making a lot of money off of one person one time is making a moderate amount of money off of many people
for life.
So you fuck someone over, you burn a bridge, you're never going to see that car again, or that person's money. If you're going to talk about business, where if you just become friends with the people that are supposed to be your customers, for example, like, it goes a long way. By being a good person, people feel more willingness to trust you and not question your better judgment, especially in being something in, like, a technology field. Most people don't really second guess me. Like, if I say you need a new hard drive or whatever, you probably need a new hard drive, not because I'm trying to steal your old one, or because I'm trying to, you know what I mean? Which is something I see a lot, actually, for example.
For sure.
But yeah, stay true.
So there you have it, folks. So persistence, motivation, being good to people. Those are awesome, actually, by the way. So, no, honestly, I appreciate you so much coming on the show and talking to us, talking to the audience about this, talking to me about this, catching up a little bit. I appreciate your hustle. Keep up what you're doing. Hopefully next time we'll link up in Toronto. We can get a joint run, and hopefully we can set up your podcast too, and then I'll be a guest on yours.
be a pleasure to have you on my non-existing podcast.
Hey, well, you got the equipment. That's all you need, man.
Exactly.
All right, dude. Thanks so much again, man. You have yourself a great night, all right?
It was a pleasure, man.
All right, man. Take care.